Hello, and we are now live on the Zodcast from the ether into your internet. An overload, a blast of information into your computer. This is the normal day for the Zodcast, and of course, I'm going to be jumping off of the last show. If you haven't been able to watch that one, that was the one from Friday night. It's doing real well. Appreciate everyone that tuned into that show. Of course, discussing the recent documentary on Netflix called "This Is the Zodiac Speaking," not to be confused with the name of the same documentary came out during the Fincher film that was by the same name. Of course, different documentary, but great documentary. So I'm kind of confused how they were able to use that same name. But let me go ahead and say hello to everyone in the chat. Hey, Cat Daddy. My cat says hello. My cat Tiger wanted me to say hello to Cat Daddy. My daughter actually saw your picture of the cats and she liked that, Cat Daddy. Hey, Craig. Ace Jack, I'm going to read what you've sent in the chat up here a little further up. Hey, Darnell. Gothic, how are you? Andrew, Spencer, Corsell Squeezer, Moletaire, good seeing you again. AMVP, Rob, good seeing you. Eduardo, really good seeing you, Eduardo. Been a little while. Oh, North Florida. Hope you came out from the hurricanes okay, MVP. And of course, Patty. Yes, Tiger the cat. Tiger is a girl cat, but lives up to the Tiger name rather well. Hey, Brant. If I missed you, I don't know if I did, but hey, Brant. So I want to do a birthday shout out to Terry. Happy birthday, Terry, from Patty, and of course myself, everyone in the Comdrune. There is your custom made birthday card from Patty. I love the Mr. Spock. So live long and prosper, Terry. See, I can still do the live long and prosper Mr. Spock hand sign. Learned that very young. It was very cool. Of course, when I think of Mr. Spock, I think of In Search Of. I love Leonard Nimoy on In Search Of. Of course, did a DB Cooper episode. I wish they had done a Zodiac episode. That would have been really cool because I think that's the first thing I ever saw on DB Cooper before Unsolved Mysteries was In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. But happy birthday from Patty. So it's the real Patty down there, and I am a believer in Patty. Yes, that is Squeezer. You're right. Me being on time is a pretty rare occurrence. But anyway, I want to jump into everything here. Oh, and another quick mention. Thank you for the Halloween card from Anthony Mills, Anthony R.R. Mills. Of course, you'll see Anthony in the chat. Maybe he'll show up and check out his channel. A lot of good content on Anthony's channel, but appreciate the love to get a Halloween card. You can see the Zodiac Halloween card behind me on my green screen, the real Halloween card, but appreciate getting one for Halloween. I think it's the second one you sent me, Anthony. So double thank you for the Halloween card on Halloween. Appreciate the love, brother. Hey, Jen. So picking up from the last show, we wanted to talk about, of course, the Berryessa speeding ticket. I wanted to pick back up on that because I went and saw that there was some talk about Arthur Lee Allen possibly getting a speeding ticket on the day of the Lake Berryessa. I'll just put Arthur Lee Allen here back in the background for now, just for some visual aid. But anyway, that was never ever proven that Arthur Lee Allen got a speeding ticket on the day of Berryessa, at Berryessa, or near Berryessa. That's complete total folklore. It's probably less probable than even the painting party that Gray Smith spun. There is no proof whatsoever of Allen getting a speeding ticket. Never seen a copy of this ticket. I mean, of course, if anybody can prove it, that's great. I'm not trying to dispel Allen totally because I think he's part of these crimes, but there is just zero proof of him getting a speeding ticket on the day of Berryessa. Of course, when we talk about Arthur Lee Allen and speeding tickets, we think of him getting one in the city of San Francisco on the day that the Pleasanton letter was mailed, and that was the first one that was mailed outside of the city of San Francisco, the first Zodiac letter. And I think that was on March 24th of 1970. I believe that was the date of the Pleasanton letter, maybe 71. I'm trying to remember. I thought I had it written down. But anyway, it was brought up in the documentary about that as well when they were talking, Allen. I think it was part of the interview with Rita Williams. I always want to say Rita Wilson. That's Tom Hanks's wife. But the TV reporter that interviewed Arthur Lee Allen that's in the documentary is Rita Williams, of course. And Alan mentions that, I think, in that longer, because there's different bits and pieces of that interview on YouTube, and I think they may have even played a little more that was never released on the documentary on Netflix. But when he's talking about some different things that were pointing to him, he mentions getting the speeding ticket in San Francisco, but he also said something like the day a letter was mailed from San Francisco. Well, we know that's not true. The letter was mailed from Pleasanton, about 40 minutes or so outside of the city of San Francisco. So I thought that was not really telling, but kind of interesting that I think Alan said that the letter that was sent that day was still sent from the city of San Francisco, which isn't true, because the belief is he got the speeding ticket and knew he could be placed in the city. Maybe he was on his way into the mailbox near wherever to mail that letter, and he gets the speeding ticket. Now he knows he can be placed in the city, so he goes further out to Pleasanton and mails the letter. And of course, that's the first break, and the letters getting mailed from the city of San Francisco. So I want to go back up. Let me see. Okay, Ace Jack, I told you I'd bring this up. So someone was asking about Don Cheney's handwriting. And if you go back to the interview with George Bowert, on his name was Arthur Lee Allen. Of course, that's on YouTube. A lot of people are checking that out now since the documentary's out. And Bowert says they did do some handwriting exemplars on Cheney, and his fingerprints didn't match. And he said DNA, I don't think so, which is odd because it is written in a few places where Cheney's DNA was tested like Allen's against the 78 letter, which of course is non-canonical Zodiac. And then there was reports that the sample was taken from outside of that stamp, meaning it could have belonged to anyone that had handled it. And we know all the Zodiac letters were handled by everybody that came in contact with them. Police took them home to show their families because of the lore around them, you know, the mystical Zodiac letters. So they would say, look, kids, these are letters from the Zodiac killer, and they would pass them around the kitchen table. That literally happened in this case, which is a shame because it's, of course, contaminating stuff. But anyway, of course, we have that the biggest handwriting sample from Don Cheney is, of course, the letter written to you know who, Tom Voigt. And Corky makes his introduction here. And I'll let that speak for itself, because a lot of people think that's one of the better handwriting matches. And only having that letter, of course, he's writing to a Zodiac researcher, so he might be able to be playing with it some. And of course, he misspells the word victim. Zodiac misspelled the same word, albeit a different way, but Don Cheney misspells victim, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure he can spell. He made honor roll every year in high school and had, you know, a lot of postgraduate education. But anyway, Ace Jack says, so I ran the handwriting samples from a known Zodiac envelope and the letter from Don Cheney to Tom Voigt through AI. Here were the results. High degree of similarity. Both share significant similarities in letter formation, spacing, and line alignment, suggesting they could be from the same writer or someone with a similar writing style. When I saw those results, chills were sent down my spine, but I'm also trying to figure out why Don Cheney would want to inject himself into it like that. He's talking about the case. What did he have to gain? A forensic handwriting analysis is needed to confirm a match, as it analyzes subtle features not visible in a general visual comparison. Thanks for that, Ace Jack. Yeah, we did a lot of that. Actually, Stefan Nyberg, a Zodiac killer researcher in Sweden, did that as well. He ran a lot of the Cheney stuff that we had. Of course, that letter you're referring to, with the abundant stuff we have from the Zodiac, and he got a high score on a lot of them that even surprised him. And I talked about it on one of these shows a while back. It'll show what the scores were that he got. So he got high scores against it as well. So I agree, more of that is needed. But to answer your question, why would he insert himself? Well, if he's Zodiac, he's going to insert himself into the case because he created it. He wants the fanfare. Why would he take part? And his name was Arthur Lee Allen, just to basically say, here's how I did it under the guise of Arthur Lee Allen. It's all Lee said, but he's able to tell you, this is what I did. And that's why he brings up the ABC murders from Agatha Christie. He said, well, Lee never said it, but I realized it at the time. It was all in that little book, the ABC murders. And you read the book ABC Murders by Agatha Christie, and has a lot in common with the Zodiac case. And of course, I think, you know, Jack the Ripper was also an influence, but there's a million reasons why he'd want to insert himself just to be close to what he created. He could have been doing it because he wanted to get the jump on Allen, because he knew Allen might have something on him and he wanted to get ahead of it. And this brings me to something else. And I was going to bring it up. Actually, I want to play it from the Rita Williams interview from YouTube. And they play a lot of hers, of course, that interview from Rita Williams with Arthur Lee Allen that she did in 1991. Of course, Allen dies in 1992. But there were some things in that I had never thought of before that Allen says that are really telling to me personally, knowing this stuff as much as I do. And that, I wish I listened to that interview more, because every time you hear it, something new comes out. And I wish there was just one, just because she spent hours with him. She even mentions that in the documentary. Rita Wilson spent hours with Arthur Lee Allen. I don't know how much got taped, because he originally only let her inside the his room, and then later they let the cameraman in, but they were still there for a very long time. So I wish they would consider releasing all of it. Okay, I'm going to play this off of my phone, so hopefully audio is really low.
Allen says a friend of his brother led police to him
Wait, let me
on,
replay that.
saying Allen, like the most dangerous game in the original Zodiac letter.
This has been so rotten and miserable and terrible. And again, the bad thing about it is that I haven't deserved any of it. And he's just about as vicious as I am.
Allen says a friend of his brother led police to him early on, saying Allen liked the book The Most Dangerous Game in the 11th grade, a phrase Zodiac used in his letters.
Well, he built this into something much, much grander, and remembered other conversations that we didn't have.
Okay, I want to stop it right there. It might have been hard to hear because that audio is so low, but Rita Williams says Allen told her that these accusations against him are from a friend of his brother's. Of course, that's his younger brother, Ron Allen, who knew John Cheney from going to Cal Poly Pomona, where he roomed with Sandy Panzarella and Don Cheney. But it's interesting because at this point, Allen had been friends with Cheney for 6 years, but yet he tells Rita Williams, this comes from a friend of my brother's. Like, he wouldn't even tell her, hey, this comes from a friend of mine. And then after that, he says he's heard more conversations that actually didn't take place or something like that. What I just played was he's talking about Don Cheney. Like, he's admitting that they did have conversations, but that Cheney was adding more things that he remembered that Allen doesn't. I mean, and through all this, Allen never, ever says anything bad about Don Cheney. Here's a guy accusing you of being the Zodiac killer, and you have nothing negative to say about him. Once infamously, Allen said, oh, that Don Cheney, he's a nice guy. After being told that's why you're being looked at as the Zodiac because of your buddy Don, he says, oh, he's a nice guy. Literally, he said that. He has nothing bad to say about Don Cheney, accusing him of being a Zodiac killer. And I don't know why he's doing this. He's either scared. He knows Cheney's got the goods to put him away for good. Cheney could have said something like, hey, at this point, you're so close to going down. All I got to do is put one of the weapons in your backyard and you're done. I mean, maybe that explains why Allen had the pipe bombs at his house. That he said if and a friend that was a felon from Atascadero had come over and put the pipe bombs there in his crawl space that the police later found when they searched 32 Fresno Street. It makes you think of that. Like, maybe Don had something on Allen that he knew he would go down, so he had him boxed in. Maybe had the goods on him. So that's another reason why Cheney would have come forward, because he knows he could put Allen away. He knows they're not going to find anything on him. And remember, this is a game. It's a game. The whole thing was set up as a game. The taunting, the letters, the ciphers, it's all a game. So that's why Cheney's going to insert himself, is to keep the game afoot, keep the game going. At this point, I talked about the Pleasanton letter. That's also called the LA Times letter, because the Zodiac said he sent it to the LA Times. Of course, the crimes happened in Northern California, but he sent it to the LA Times, as the Zodiac said, because the other newspapers will bury him on the back pages. And of course, the LA Times did not. But of course, it's my belief, because Cheney was already living back in the Los Angeles area when that letter was printed. So if the big bag Zodiac's going to give into all that and have to make up an excuse for himself that they're not giving him the publicity he wants anymore, so he sends that letter to the LA Times. I mean, this is something that he doesn't want it to stop. He's probably scared to kill again, because he almost got caught at the Paul Stein murder in the Presidio Heights. So I just thought that was interesting that he tells Rita Williams that The reason I'm being accused is from my brother's friend, even though he admits he was friends with Don for 6 years at this point, because he meets him 62-ish. Don gets married that year. Ron is his best man. I think he meets Arthur Lee Allen in 62, all the way up to the beginning of 1969. So a good 6 or 7 years. He's friends with the guy, and he's got to tell Rita Williams, this comes from my brother's friend. At that point, he was better friends with Arthur Lee Allen than Don was with Ron Allen, because Don never told anything to Ron about when Arthur Lee Allen told him he was going to go kill couples on murderers lane, kill couples on lovers lanes. He was going to call himself Zodiac, all this stuff. Don conveniently doesn't even tell Ron that. So I just thought that was really, really interesting thing I wanted to bring out again about the film. So going back, Barry S. a ticket, never seen evidence of it. Don't even know if it exists. I wanted to talk about Bates some, because this brings, let me go back to this, because I'm going to go to the poll results. Let me see if they're in here. Here's the poll results. So I asked the question, and I should have made this a little more clear, because it said this was on the post part of this channel. It says, do you believe the claims of the Seawater family as told in the new Netflix documentary? And yes was 44%, and no was 56%. And at the time of this, you can still vote on this if you want. If you're watching this and haven't seen this, just go to the posting section of this channel, which they used to call community, but YouTube changed it for some reason. But with 86 votes, it was 44-56. 44 believe them, 56 don't. I should have made that a little more clear, because what I'm really talking about with the Seawaters is, do you believe the stories about the attack on Bobby Dominguez and Linda Edwards at Gaviota Beach in 62, and then 63, thinking of Ray Davis, 62. That was in 63. And of course, the story about Sherry Jo Bates when they were down there, and he allegedly is the attacker, Sherry Jo Bates. And that story, that's really what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about their claims about, the molestations or anything like that with Allen. That probably did happen if you're dealing with Arthur Lee Allen. So I'm not saying they're lying about that. I'm just saying there were some liberties taken with those two stories, talking about the attack on Bobby and Linda. And one thing to bring up with that is, it was a Tuesday when Bobby and Linda were attacked, and it was a senior skip day from Lompoc High School. And why weren't these kids in school? Arthur Lee Allen's not, I don't know if he was working then, or if he had started at Valley Springs yet or not, but why aren't the kids in school? Do they could just take off school any day? Is that no big deal back then? I don't know. But it was definitely a school day. And I think it was June 4th of 63. It was a Tuesday. None of these kids are in school. It's just, I can't, who can remember detail like that? Going back that far, you're going to really remember the detail going into the PX and buying the ammo, and it was 22 long. I don't know. I think the person that said it best, and big shout out here to my good friend Ned DeHaan from BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, your place to check out the Zodiac Killer News Report that usually comes out every Monday. So you don't want to miss that. But here's Ned's comment that was under the polling. It says, I think they believe what they are saying. They think they're telling the truth, but I don't believe those stories actually happened. It's almost as if one of them started remembering the details and they all bought into the story. We are dealing with specific dates and times for the stories. Most kids don't remember that stuff. Well said, Ned. I think Ned nailed that. I couldn't have said it better. I think some things are getting conflated. You want that to be Arthur Lee Allen because it makes you feel important that you knew this guy and that you could help solve this notorious crime. Yes, they knew Arthur Lee Allen and he did bad things, but it makes you feel better that you knew him. Forget about money. These TV shows really don't pay much money. They don't. I don't care if it gets 4 million views, 10 million views on Netflix. They don't pay. They just really don't. Most you'll get out of them if you really beg them and you're a key player in a documentary, you might get $1,000. Not a huge deal. Really is. And I'm not saying that's not a lot of money. I'm just saying it's nothing material that's going to change your life financially. I think it just makes them feel good to say that we knew the Zodiac and that he confessed that he was the Zodiac. When Allen died, they had the letter there of him still maintaining his innocence. And he wanted to take another lie detector too before he died. He was, of course, he had a lie detector taken when he was at Atascadero Hospital. He had a full hours long polygraph, and he did pass it with flying colors. And he's mentioned that before. He had no trouble passing it. Of course, some belief is that he either had a split personality. I see that come in with some of the excuses for why his handwriting isn't a great match to Zodiac. And also, of course, they talk about him being able to write with his right and left hand. I think they even said in it that Glenn Reinhardt claimed that he could write with his right and left hand, which is not true. Glenn Reinhardt said he was left-handed and stuck to that. So this is where you see this case. You have to know it really well to know exactly what the people said, because if you heard that his best friend said he could write with both hands, you would tend to believe it, but that's not true. Glenn Reinhardt said he was left-handed. Maybe he could write some with his right hand because they taught him to, but Glenn stuck to the fact that his buddy was a lefty and favored his left hand. So, of course, that's a big blow against Alan at Lake Berryessa. Thanks, Chris. They make sense to me, and I've been looking at this for a long, long time. Yeah, everybody's talking a lot about the bloody knives. So the bloody knives is just a story that Alan offered to John Lynch when he was being interviewed. I think 9 days, I can't remember the exact date, after the Lake Berryessa attack on September 27th. This was early October, the first week of October of 69. And no one knows why. Lynch can't remember why he interviewed Arthur Lee Allen. A lot of people think he just got turned in anonymously. Maybe Cheney did it. Maybe Allen and Cheney did it together, and Allen knew that they weren't going to find anything on him, so he's got that bravado in the interview, and he's not really worried about anything. But they asked John Lynch later why he interviewed Arthur Lee Allen and as being connected to the Berryessa attack, and he could not remember. He could not remember why Allen came up at all. So Allen goes away. At that point, that's the first point. Allen shows up. Is anything connected? Is the first week of October of 69. And he doesn't come back into anyone's radar for these crimes whatsoever until Cheney comes forward in July of 1971. And then that all gets reignited again, of course, with Ralph Spinelli. And they make reference to Spinelli in the new documentary, but they don't say his name. They say someone else comes forward and kind of corroborates what Cheney said. And they don't say his name. For whatever reason, they didn't want to bring up the name Ralph Spinelli. Of course, we know who it is, but they didn't. And I honestly do not believe Ralph Spinelli. I don't. And I'm going back to this again because Allen, in that interview with Rita Williams, talks about Spinelli. He doesn't say it by name, but he says that guy was a hood. He was a punk. And later, a police officer told me that he was going to get charged with two different armed robberies, and that's what he was looking to make a deal. And of course, somehow Spinelli heard that Allen was the one they were looking at, the infamous Bob Hall star, as Gravesmith referred to Allen as in his book, because Allen was still alive. And that is such a dichotomy between how he speaks about Ralph Spinelli, one of his accusers, and his first accuser, of course, being Don Cheney. He's like, I don't know why he added more to these stories, and that was my friend's brother, and he's just a swell guy. Versus Spinelli, he says, is a hood. He's a punk. He's trying to get off of two major crimes. Of course, when they mentioned the second accuser in the documentary, they don't mention the fact that Spinelli did two prison stints, two long-term prison stints, and it wasn't the county jail or club fed. I think I've got Spinelli's book. I need to finish reading it. It's actually pretty good. Spinelli did make good at the end of his life, but he never came forward and said he was telling the truth or not about the Arthur Lee Allen stories. But he did time in San Quentin, like hardcore prisons. His first 10 years in an Oregon prison, but the second one, I think he was in San Quentin for a while and a lot of hardcore places. So unfortunately, Spinelli's stuff teeters quite a bit, but I thought that was a great comment by Ned. Yes, that's where he did. He admitted to the knives to John Lynch, and that he was killing chickens or whatever. But to my knowledge, no officer ever saw the knives. No one ever collected these knives. It was just Allen with a pre-cooked story to jerk the cops around. Yeah, I agree. Allen is a creep. I mean, Allen wasn't just I don't think he was a criminal mastermind. Allen was smart, but he's no mastermind. He's no mastermind. I don't think even Allen says he just got bad luck. No way, Arthur Lee Allen. Let's say this is all Arthur Lee Allen. Are you really going to tell Don Cheney everything? Your brother, the friend you met through your brother? I'm not going to tell Glenn Reinhardt. I'm not going to tell Phil Tucker. I'm going to tell Don Cheney everything. Don, I'm going to be the Zodiac. Don't tell. Okay. I trust you, Don. Don't tell anyone. The mastermind is just going to blab it all to Don Cheney. No way. I don't buy it. I don't believe him. I really don't. I mean, he could be telling the truth, but I just don't think he is. It just, the whole thing, let's say that Spinelli's telling the truth. Let's go back to it. He says that Alan comes and says he wants to kill people for him because he knows he's a mafia type person. Well, the thing with that is, Ralph Spinelli, I'm glad you're mentioning Spinelli again, because you think of something new with this all the time. Spinelli was this mob type figure. He wasn't actually in the organized mafia of New York. He wasn't part of the Gambino crime family. This guy's just running stuff for money. He's got like little gambling operations in Vallejo. He's got a saloon, the Crazy Horse Saloon, which wasn't in Vallejo. I don't remember what town he owned the Crazy Horse Saloon. These are money rackets, you know. They weren't like shakedowns like the regular mafia, and they certainly weren't killing people just for the hell of it. They weren't. Who did the mob kill? The mob killed their guys that they thought would inform on them, or they would kill members of other crime families. This wasn't the level of the mafia like that. Ralph Spinelli didn't need people killed. He was more about robbing and making money, not killing people. He just wasn't. I'm not saying him or his organizations never needed to kill anybody. He didn't. I don't know, but I highly doubt it. These guys were just a money-making deal. Drugs, gambling, and that kind of stuff. They weren't like going and throwing people in the Hudson River. Okay. So, you know, the whole story is Alan comes to him offering his services as a hitman. Think of that. Oh, hey, Ralph, I know you run this club, but do you need anybody killed next week? I can go kill for you. Is that cool? I mean, if that's Alan, the criminal mastermind, is really going to go offer his services to this guy that he had a beef with in 58, I'm going to go kill people for you. That's absurd. It is absurd that he's going to go after a guy that he doesn't like, had a bad history with over that one incident that he talks about, and his name was Arthur Allen. And he's going to go to that guy and say, oh, hey, you need anyone killed? It's ridiculous. And then supposedly he leaves, and then Paul Stein is murdered, and Alan comes back and says, do you believe me now? Well, if Ralph is such a swell guy and a truth teller, why couldn't Ralph at least anonymously call the police at that point and say, go look at this guy. I think he killed the cab driver over in the Presidio. So I like questions like that, because there is no need for Spinelli to have a hitman. And if he did, I think he's going to do it himself and not trust Arthur Lee Allen from the hood. I mean, come on. It's absurd. It really is. I just think Spinelli's lying from the jump. I really do. I agree. I really agree, Brian. I think you and I have talked about it. Yeah, I like stuff about the. What's crazy to me is how much we've been able to glean about the killer. Yes, that's true. Must have been because of all the letters. Yeah, huge fan of the Mikado. Apparently, a huge Batman comic fan. Yeah, I think Dave Aranchek did a great video on a lot of the Batman influences, and there was even a Zodiac. I think there was even a Mikado reference in one of the Batman TV shows, if I'm not mistaken, that Dave found. And yeah, I love guns, certain books. Of course, Tim Holt, By Fire, By Gun, By Rope, Red Rider, the little symbol on the Red Rider coloring book. That was a comic book. A lot of it. We know pretty sure he watched Museum Piece by Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff, including, what's the one I brought up the other day? Oh, shoot. The one that put the picture up on the community page the other day, The Zone. What? I can't even remember the name of that movie. I think that's something he may have seen as well. No, nothing concrete. There's nothing concrete at all. But if you strip away everything that you know about Alan from what Graysmith said, you could take away all what the Seawater said. There's still a lot of stuff there. And think about that. Just what we know is true. Did Arthur Lee Allen misspell words for comedic effect like the Zodiac before Lake Herman Road? Yes. When did he get the watch? It's interesting because going back to the wristwatch, the Zodiac watch that Arthur Lee Allen owned, he told Rita Williams, who this gets said again in the interview with Rita, that he got the wristwatch for Christmas of 68. And when Ron Allen was asked about it, he said, we got him for Christmas 67 because Ron got an identical watch. And then, of course, when Don Cheney's telling the story, about going over to his house on New Year's Eve, 1969, that Alan got to watch from his mom for Christmas. Of course, Arthur Lee Allen's birthday is so close to Christmas, he probably got robbed a lot because literally because his birthday was December 20th, so it's just days before Christmas. So, it could have been a birthday slash a birthday slash Christmas gift because it's his birthday and Christmas were so close together, but they never nail it down. But what's interesting is that Ron said they got it for their Christmas of 67, way before Don's great story. Yes, I agree, Chris. If anything, DC was probably furious at Alan for mailing that letter in Pleasanton. Yes, that's been, I think Tony brings that up a lot. I agree. I think he would have been livid about that. Getting a ticket and deciding to drop dime on him. What could Alan do? Yeah, he would have known when he came forward that he probably didn't have a whole lot on him. But this is a game. Why does Cheney stop working for Panzarella, making good money, working for a buddy at a company that's booming, and he had to leave? My belief is part of it was Cheney hated authority. He hated it. That's why he was a job hopper. He was a super smart guy. He's a mechanical engineer. He's working for his buddy who's making a fortune doing computerized medical billing in the 60s. That's not going anywhere. Who's ever going to be billed by a computer in the future? Brilliant. Panzarella's a smart guy. And Cheney leaves that job. Why would you ever do that? I talked to one detective at Link that wasn't on the Zodiac case, but he was ex-SFPD and knew George Bauer very well. He told me that Bauer literally went to his grave believing it was Allen, and he did have a lot of suspicions about Cheney. I mean, Bauer says that, and his name was Arthur Lee Allen, but he's really him and another detective from San Francisco I've talked to, but I've never talked to one that actually worked the case. No. But a couple of ex-SFPD guys. Allen did some jail time at Atascadero, which was also kind of like a mental institution. Shot quarter. Thanks, Ross. Couldn't remember it. I kept thinking corridor. This is another one I picked up. It says, Cheney is not what I would call a credible source. Here's my issue with Cheney. I didn't write this. I don't remember who did or where I picked it up, but it's fairly new. Here's my issue with Cheney. To me, it seems like Cheney could have been Zodiac. And as we know, Zodiac loved to brag about his crimes. And what I see Cheney doing is openly bragging about key features of these crimes under the guise of Arthur told me. Cheney probably thinks that he is so clever that he can openly talk about crimes without incriminating himself. Yes, Cheney is able to publicly describe events of these crimes. And because he says, Arthur told me these things, nobody suspects these ideas might actually been Cheney's to begin with. Cheney gives more detailed descriptions than you would expect. That's true. Even AI has picked up on that. When my friend ran the AI of everything Don Cheney, the AI states that he has far more details, that he should if he's not Zodiac. He must have really been listening to everything Arthur said. I mean, Cheney says they were getting drunk on a fishing trip when Arthur told him some things, yet Cheney remembers every little detail perfectly. And going back off of that and what Alan says to Rita Williams, he says that Cheney just remembered some more conversations. Like Alan's basically admitting that there were conversations between him and Don Cheney about supposedly creating all this stuff. But he's saying that, Cheney maybe remembered some more that just didn't happen. That's Alan's excuse for it. But he pretty much is saying, yeah, there were some conversations. Like he didn't want to blanketly say, never had any conversation like that with Don Cheney. He's a liar. He never says this. This is not normal behavior. If you have somebody accusing you of being a serial killer, you're going to push back. If you're innocent, I don't know what his problem is, but he's a liar. I don't know. He's a liar. Maybe he's Zodiac, whatever. But you're not going to just patty it off like, oh, you remembered a few things that I don't. Or it's just strange. If you go back and listen closely to that interview with Rita Williams and Arthur Lee Allen, he basically saying there were conversations. It's incredible. It could have been Chris. If Alan ratted Don Cheney out, he was likely involved in a murder conspiracy. True. Maybe, maybe Alan's a ride along at Lake Herman Road and takes one of those shots and explains the the shell casing that didn't match the others at Lake Herman Road. I mean, it's anything possible. Lake Herman Road's one that just we're never going to know because there was obviously no witnesses. They were both killed. Yeah, that would have been different if ALO comes back the next night with the police of, yes, that's a great point, Rob. Think about that. If he wanted to prove it for sure to Spinelli, why didn't he bring the bloody shirt? Think about it. That's a great question. That's something, that just no one ever thought of it. It's just right there in front of you. So ALA is the Zodiac killer. He kills Paul Stein. We know the Zodiac cut a piece of Paul Stein's shirt off when he killed him in the Presidio because he mailed it in 3 different pieces with 3 different correspondences, including one to Melvin Belli. Why doesn't he just take one in and say, or he can just tell him like, hey, Ralph, watch the news because I'm going to make a prediction here. A piece of this cabbie's bloody shirt's going to show up in the mail or something, yes. Great point, Rob. That is a fantastic point. If Alan wants to prove to Spinelli he's the guy, bring that bloody shirt with you, bring the wallet or something proving it's you. And he didn't. Great comment. No, I don't think Spinelli alludes to that. If that happened, if Spinelli knew that, he would have plastered that everywhere. I mean, Spinelli was trying to get off 2 armed robberies, which he did hard time for. And, later Spinelli did through his lawyer say, yeah, the name was Arthur Lee Allen because they didn't make the deal with Spinelli. They said, no. I mean, that's how much they wanted to get the Zodiac and they wanted to know what name Spinelli knew, but they were not willing to make a deal with him at all. I mean, that says a lot. I mean, we could get the Zodiac just for giving this goofball a little less prison time, and they didn't make the deal. So when Spinelli knew they weren't going to make the deal, he said, yeah, it was Arthur Lee Allen. That's the name I heard. I mean, come on. I don't believe him. I don't. I know he made good later in his life. He had cancer. He got to meet Jack Nicklaus, his hero. He got, I know he got a master's. I think he was working on a PhD, which is great to do that later on like he was. He really did turn around. He really did. But I doubt he had it within his conscious to say, you know what, I made that shit up about Alan because I don't believe it. I don't. I've always liked certain things with Professor Horn's theory. I think some of that could be at play. That's why I was never a critic of it, and probably why we're friends. Because the truth remains, you cannot conclusively say even 2 of the canonical Zodiac crimes are the same person. You can't. Most people think they are. That's why, the Seawaters have to latch on to non-canonical crimes because they weren't hanging around Alan during Lake Herman Road, and they know it and probably could be proven. They know they weren't hanging around Alan during Blue Rock Springs or Berryessa. So they got to latch on to Edwards and Dominguez and going back and thinking about that again. But yeah, I think some of the things in Tom's theory are good. And I think God, what's his name? Evan from Texas did a really good job on kind of forwarding Horn's theory. And I haven't heard from Evan in a while. Hope you're all right, man. Seriously, I know you don't get on Facebook or the media much, but if you're around Evan and still watching this stuff, send me an email. I'd like to know you're doing okay. But I think he did a great job of kind of bolstering the things around Horn's theory. I think Tom probably might have gone a little too far with trying to put Dennis Land in the mix because we know Dennis Land found Brian Hartnell when he was crawling for help and Dennis Land picked him up. And, it's a little out there. Yeah, Ross shows all the sites in his main series. He went to Gaviota Beach and showed everything there. And then Ross did a great job also on Riverside. And I asked Ross because going back to the Seawaters, and that's what I'm focusing on with them. Their 2 biggest claims where they were supposedly at the murder site at Gaviota Beach where Bobby and Linda were killed, where the kids were in the car. And Alan goes down there and supposedly murders Bobby and Linda, which there's some things in that attack that Zodiac didn't do. Zodiac never handled the bodies. He never drug anybody. The killer of Bobby and Linda dragged their bodies to the lean-to shack and tried to set it on fire, but he wasn't successful. He cut Linda's bra strap, but there was no clear evidence of any sexual assault, but he did cut her bra strap and he did drag the bodies. Zodiac never interfered with the body. So there's a few things that aren't exactly like Zodiac, but maybe this is Zodiac in training or something like that. But focusing on just these two crimes, and Seawater saying they were there at that particular crime, and then what if they gotten out of the car and followed him where he was? Like, what do you say? If you get out of the car, I'm going to kill you. What if those kids got out of Alan's car and tried to find where he was for whatever reason, and they walk up and he's shooting Bobby and Linda, or dragging Bobby and Linda's bodies to the lean-to shack? I mean, it's just a little too much. It's a little too detailed. It's a little too convenient. And then going back over to Sherry Joe Bates, of course, 66. And I asked Ross, because he knows these non-canonicals better than anybody, he's my go-to for it, was that when they found Sherry's body that was viciously attacked, she was almost decapitated. So it's very different from Cecilia, who was stabbed and killed, but it wasn't so violent that he decapitated her. In fact, she lived for 2 days after she was stabbed. It did succumb to her wounds, unfortunately, but when Sherry was attacked, it was violent. I mean, multiple stabbings, violent. She tried to put up a fight. It was apparent that she did. But left at the crime scene was a wristwatch. I think it was a Seiko, right, Ross? And the size of the band, because the watch came apart from where the band was attached to the face of the watch, but the strap was still in the little buckle, so they could tell what size wristwatch it was, and it was a 7. Ain't no way Arthur the Allen's wearing a size 7 watch in 1966, folks. No way. 7 is not that big of a wrist. Big man like Allen ain't wearing a 7. And it's pretty much believed that watch belonged to the assailant. It was found right where she had been attacked. It looked like there was a struggle. Maybe Sherry pulled the watch. Let me see if I got a picture of the watch up here. I thought I did. There's Allen. I thought I did. I want to go back to Brian Hartnell too. Well, I'm speaking. No, I don't have it. But anyway, you've seen the pictures of the watch. It was, I think that might have been bought at a PX, right, Ross? And it was a Timex. I think it was a Timex. Yeah, Timex. Thanks, Ross. It was a Timex watch, and it was a size 7. So that doesn't point towards Allen. There were footprints found there. I think it was a military dress shoe, not a wing walker, but a military dress shoe was found there, and it was a smaller size, right, Ross? It was the wing walker at Berryessa was a 10.5, and I think they couldn't tell the exact size of the one at the Bates crime. It wasn't as defined as the shoe print from Berryessa, but I think it was a 9.5 to 10. So it was even smaller. So those two things don't point in Arthur Lee Allen's direction at all. They don't. Yes, there was DNA. I don't know. Where did they find out? Because I know that Maines talks about this a lot, Ross. And I know that some of the DNA was either from the hair that was in the webbing of Sherry's hand, but then there was some DNA for, I don't know where the sample came from. I thought it was from the hairs from the webbing in her hand, but I never really understood. Yeah, Ross Sullivan's huge. Good point, Josh. Ross Sullivan was big. Ross Sullivan was every bit of 300 pounds then. And we know Ross Sullivan was 300 pounds because he got arrested for the phone booth incident in Santa Cruz, where he moved to when he left the Riverside area, and he was harassing a man in a phone booth. He was totally naked in the phone booth, but he was so big that they made note of his size. He was 6'2". Some people say 3, but I think he was 6'2", and all of 300 pounds. Ross Sullivan was a big, big man, and I think he's a terrible, terrible Zodiac suspect. Both bad suspects. ALA was bald in 69. All the good point. Arthur Lee Allen was bald in 69. All the witnesses saw hair. They saw at the Presidio Heights. It was described. Falk called it a widow's peak later. And the sketch kind of shows a widow's peak where he's got some hair in the middle, like somebody else we know had some hair, but it had a widow's peak because it was balding on the sides. And Falk makes it clear that that's what he's calling a widow's peak, and that the hair was brown and it maybe had a little graying in the back. And then, of course, Brian and Cecilia saw brown hair at Lake Berryessa coming through the eyelets of the Zodiac mask. They both saw the hair coming through the eye and that it was brown. They both said this separately and it was documented in the police report. So that's not like Zodiac folklore, like the infamous Berryessa speeding ticket that does not exist. This is in the police reports that Brian Cecilia saw hair coming through the eyelets. So if that's Arthur Lee Allen, he's wearing a wig. Oh, it's simple. He was wearing a wig. Really? Why would you wear a wig, number one, that would have had hair coming through that, and then so bushy or whatever that it could shift around in his hood when Brian takes him out? You know, like if Brian decides to make a move on him, and as we know, Brian almost did. It's absurd. Hey, Anthony, thanks for the card, man. I showed it earlier. Hope you saw it. Yeah, that's funny, Chris. Ross Sullivan was more of a threat to phone booths than people. He was. That poor man that got trapped inside that phone booth with a naked Ross Sullivan. Poor guy. Of course, it didn't say the victim's name, and he probably didn't want that advertised. Yeah, Gajkowski was at the painting party before the Bates murder. It was the pre-painting party, Robert. The pre. Yeah, I showed the card. Here it is again. I had your card right here. And I've got and I pointed out I have the real one behind me there. The infamous Zodiac. Hey, Coach. Ross Sullivan was a Zodiac killer suspect. He trapped a guy in a phone booth in Santa Cruz. We don't know why. I think he was just having a psychotic episode because Ross Sullivan was insane. I mean, he had schizophrenia. He's bipolar. You name it, he had it, and he was on drugs for all of it, and it didn't control it. He wasn't even driving a vehicle at the time of Lake Berryessa. He's the worst Zodiac killer suspect I can think. I mean, other than Gary Post, Sullivan is almost as bad as Post. Actually, Post is worse. I don't know, they're bad, but he's god awful. I don't know how anyone in their right mind. Remember, he was the flavor of the day on Reddit because he looked like the sketch. Man, that psycho, he couldn't even drive a car. He was a dishwasher. You think he's doing a cipher that took 50 years to break? I mean, it's just absurd. Plus, he's way too big. 300 pounds. Ain't nobody saw a 300-pound anybody. How to rob a bank. The killer on the Stein murder could have worn a basic Stein. Could have. That's true. But if he's wearing a wig, let's say it's Allen at the Stein murder, would he be smart enough to wear a widow's peak wig? I mean, that'd be kind of like really smart, wouldn't it? If you're totally bald, but you wear a wig that makes it look like you're balding, though, but not as balding. That would actually be pretty dang smart. I don't know if it's Alan that smart, but can you get a widow? I guess you would have to make it like to have a wig that's a widow's peak. I mean, I guess they have them like in movies and stuff. If somebody's playing that, you know, they want that look. Maybe it's a wig, but I don't know. But good points people are making tonight. So going back to Brian Hartnell, and this was brought up again on Reddit, and this is, why going back to why Arthur Lee Allen is, I mean, I don't even give a % chance that Arthur Lee Allen was the attacker at Berryessa, and that's a canonical crime. So it's just a blow to Allen for a million reasons. I've laid this out. He's a terrible, terrible suspect for this particular attack at Lake Berryessa. Allen's terrible because it's a right-handed attack. He's dominant left. He didn't walk well. This was a good walk down there to where Brian and Cecilia were. I can't remember the distance. It's in my book, but it's a good long walk. And we know from Brian's testimony and this is the Zodiac speaking. Now we got to refer to 1 and 2 just to know what we're talking about. But Brian says that Zodiac was walking briskly towards him and Cecilia after he was hiding by the tree and put the mask on. He's walking up to them briskly. And Allen wasn't briskly walking anywhere in 69, but this is Mr. Baseball too. He's one of only 3 guys with a brain on Reddit at all, and he's the smartest. But this is from Riverside Lawyer magazine, which I couldn't find the article again the other day, but I printed this multiple times. But it says this is from an interview that Brian Hartnell did with Riverside Lawyer magazine, October 2013 issue. And this is a direct quote from Brian Hartnell. And this is the only thing that he's mentioned about Zodiac since the Fincher film, because he doesn't do media at all. He said, there was a period of time when Allen was working at a store and the police asked, okay, this is somebody else wrote that was right in the article. But he does make, this is a direct quote at bottom. Working at a store and the police asked Hartnell to go in the store as if he was going to purchase something to see if he could recognize Allen. Hartnell observed Allen and concluded that he was not the same person who had attacked both he and Shepard. He said, I don't think the guy Alan, they think did it, says Hartnell. So that's just a blow for anybody pushing Alan. It is. Because if Alan's doing these other murders, why is he not going to do the paramount Zodiac crime where he's wearing the hood? He's in costume. He's wearing the hood over him. He's got the Zodiac cross circle on his chest. He never says I'm Zodiac, but in his mind, he's playing the role. Maybe as the Lord High Executioner from the Mikado. And here's the witness and engagement conversation saying, I don't think it's him. That's a blow to Alan. There's many blows to Alan for Berryessa and Presidio. They just are. And it's just easier to try to make them fit at Lake Herman because there was no witnesses there because they both died. And Mike Michaud's not a good witness because he had a flashlight in his face. So really not easy to put Alan into the canonical murders at all for these reasons. No, they never did. They never did. Other than the sketch. Of course, that story came out a while back. Of course, Lindsay Robbins was the oldest of the children as a boy. This bogus story came out about how after he witnessed Paul Stein being murdered in the Presidio through the window, he went down to the car and tried to move Paul Stein's body for whatever reason, maybe trying to help him. And then he went back inside the house, and that he didn't want anyone to know this, and he didn't want it told until after his death or after his mother died. And apparently his son told that story, Lindsay Robbins' son, that his father did move the body, which could explain the fingerprints. Maybe they were Lindsay Robbins' fingerprints on the cab. And no one was ever able to verify that story. I'm not going to say where it came from, but it was out there. And I even messaged Lindsay's son, who claimed to have been the source, and I never heard back from the guy. So if that story is true, I think Lindsay's son needs to come out and say it's true. But no, I don't think they did. I don't think that Lindsay Robbins ever gave an interview, or his sister, or the other one, or the other sibling. I know he had a sister, and I don't know if the other was a brother or another sister. Thanks, David. Yeah, I'm all over the road tonight, but I was on a straight rant on Friday. So I'm not on the same wavelength I was on Friday. I just had a good long rant and kept going. Yeah, that's true. There was paint on the watch from the Sherry Joe Bates crime. It was I don't know if it's something like this house paint or something like that. Yeah, the paint came from the paint party. The paint party that didn't happen until I don't even remember when the alleged paint party happened, but I think it was in I don't know, I'm going to guess 69, early 69, before Darlene Ferrin was murdered on July 4th/5th. Oh, it was Rebecca. Yeah. Okay. Rebecca Robbins sat down for the second sketch. And then I think Donald Fouke saw it and said, yeah, he pretty much agreed with the sketch. Spring of 69. Yeah. I was just saying had to have been before, she was murdered in middle summer. But yeah, you're right. 69. The party that never happened. And there's not one shred of proof that there was a painting party. There's as much proof of the painting party as there is the speeding ticket at Berryessa. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Alan just seems like a blowhard. He really does. I think he participated in some of the fear campaign. No, I really do. There's a lot of Alan that comes through in the letters. I think Peter Ackerman did pretty good work on that. A lot of these hardcore Alan people like to look at Cheney as not involved and just telling the truth, because that makes Alan a stronger suspect. So they don't like this duo thing. The hardcore Alan people do not like a Cheney duo, and that's their right to. But I think some do great research, like Peter Ackerman. He will, if you look at all his work, he can show you a lot of Alan influence in the letters, the G glyphs and the Exorcist letter, and he can show some things that are pretty convincing that Alan had a small hand in the letters. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Yeah, because when Falk saw him, he never reported seeing blood on the man he thought was Zodiac in the Presidio that night. I don't know if how he could have gotten the blood off, because at the point where the Zodiac shot Paul Stein in the right of his head above his ear, believe he's in the back seat and just kind of reaching over like this to get above Paul Stein's ear, there would have been quite a bit of blood on him. So I don't know. I don't know if it's because it was dark at night. Maybe he had something to put over his shirt that had blood on it. I don't know. I've never thought a whole lot about it, but people seem to agree that he definitely saw, that Falk definitely saw Zodiac that night. Yeah, Jerome showed me some of this stuff about the biker patch. I think that I can't remember what was the name of that motorcycle club. It wasn't Hell's Angels, but another one that was slaves, Satan slaves, right? Satan's Slaves Motorcycle Club, and it shows what we call the VF symbol that looks like the Flying VF Ranch from I guess Red Rider. It looks like that symbol from a fictitious ranch or whatever. That symbol is what you're talking about with the the V and the F. That looks fake to me. Whoever put that on the Satan Slaves patch or whatever, fake that. So I don't think there's any connection to the biker patch at all. I think somebody faked that deal. Yeah, that's a good point, Zap. He could have just turned his jacket inside out. It was if you're talking about Stein, Shine was shot in it's right side of his head, above his ear, on Stein's right side. Well, there's similarities in the crimes. Let's face it. There was a phone call after Blue Rock. There was a phone call after Berryessa, of course, we know about. Of course, Berryessa was a knife attack as opposed to a gun. There was different ballistics from Lake Herman Road into Blue Rock Springs. But, of course, Zodiac took credit for all four of them. Of course, he never took credit for Berryessa in a letter. Oddly enough, that's why some people want to think that that's a copycat. But why would a copycat wear the cross circle? That you would think that'd be more the real one. I'd be more apt to believe that Berryessa was real because of that. Even though we know that the killer sent in a piece of Stein's shirt from the Presidio proving he was Zodiac. But there were similarities. There was definitely some similarities, and then there were some things that weren't. But namely, the phone call was a big one. They're couples, of course. That's a similarity. They're couples out by themselves for the first three crimes. You have two couples out in what you could call that a lover's lane, like Herman Road. I think the lady says that in the documentary, that they did consider that a lover's lane to go out there. And she said the same of Blue Rock Springs. She referred to both of those. I don't know who she was. She wasn't one of the Seawaters. Some other lady that, I don't know, knew Alan or something, lived in Vallejo, said that she did consider those lover's lanes. So they're couples on lover's lanes. Of course, Berryessa was a couple, but it's kind of a secluded part of the lake. So those are the similarities mainly there. A couple, the phone calls after two of them, and then the Zodiac taking credit and writing the dates on the door of Brian's car on the Carmen Gia. Let me go back here. I think that picture of Brian is from probably around the time of that article. But yeah, I think he's 70, 75. And there's the Ace Hardware, by the way. I did steal this from the documentary, but I am assuming this is the Ace Hardware where Alan worked, and it looks like probably something from maybe 1970-ish. But that is the Ace in Vallejo where Arthur Lee Allen worked. That's the first picture I've ever seen of it, by the way. Okay, here's another one. We hit over 100 in the live chat. That is awesome. Thank you to everyone tuning in. Please remember to hit the like button if you can, but it's awesome to have over 100 people in the live. It says, or when Cheney found out the DNA testing was going to be conducted on Zodiac envelopes, he comes up with this story that Allen had others lick his stamps and envelopes because the glue made him sick. This might have been Cheney trying to cover himself. If DNA turned up on a Zodiac envelope, true, because what if it did? What if Cheney's DNA turned up? He would have just said, "Oh, I told you I licked Alan's letters. Isn't it simple? That doesn't mean I'm the killer. I told you I licked the guy's stuff. I mean, let me go." Cheney also mentioned that Arthur would take a piece of putty, obtain a fingerprint impression, which he could have used to create, of course, yeah, he's talking about the paraffin wax, an object for planting false prints. That this sounds like Cheney trying to cover himself if his prints show up. Of course it does. So when it comes to these things that Cheney said, Arthur told me, I am highly skeptical. So am I. Yes, 103. That's a new record. Thanks, Anthony. It was the good luck of that Halloween card that you got me. And Terry's birthday. Tom, think this stabbing was a copycat, and it was to point it towards the Zodiac by doing the hood and symbol. That way no one would question it. Good. Yeah. It is weird that he never claims Berryessa in a letter. He only claims it on the car door. Never mentions Berryessa in the letter, or a cipher for that matter. But the physical description, pretty close from Berryessa to Presidio. Stocky, of course, barrel-chested. Cecilia said, I think she even used the word fat, said there was some Brian thought he saw some belly fat around him, but he had those pre-cut plastic lines that he was going to bind them with showing, but those were fairly close. I think he did. I think you're right. Andrew. I think Mike Rodelli did talk to the Robbins kids. And give Rodelli credit. He got to talk to his suspect. How awesome is that? I mean, Mike Rodelli got to question his Zodiac suspect, of course, Gel Cavale. It's interesting that Lindsay Robbins dismissed ALA as Zodiac, but said that Gel Cavale was a maybe. I don't remember him saying that, but maybe that's what Mike said. So maybe Zodiac looks like Gel Cavale. Gel Cavale was not stocky, I can tell you that. He was an impeccably dressed, wealthy car dealer. He was nowhere near stocky. Barrel-chested and Shel Cavalli would not go together. I can tell you that. Stocky and Shel Cavalli do not go together. That's actually people's biggest knock on Cavalli is the description. It really is. Not just why would this very successful rich guy go slumming in Vallejo killing people. It's really that he just wasn't a good, especially a physical match. I don't know how tall Cavalli was, but he was pretty lean. I mean, there's lots of pictures of him. He was very wealthy, very fit. He was an equestrian. I think he was an athlete. Yeah, here also avid skier. Cavalli's just a terrible match for the witness descriptions. Yes, Arthur said the pipe bomb was his friend. So who is his friend? Don Cheney. You know, I thought of that because he said his friend left the bomb materials there. So you think maybe Don's doing that just to tantalize. And, you know, Arthur Lee Allen just said it was a convict from Atascadero. Allen, you know what? You think they would have followed up on that. Think about that. That's one of the most incriminating things they found when they searched 32 Fresno Street, where the bomb-making materials in the crawl space, you know, because the Zodiac talked about the bomb, the bus bomb. He drew the bus bomb. And then they find pipe bomb material. And Allen says, well, that's not mine. And of course, none of it connected to a Zodiac crime because Zodiac never used a bomb. He just wrote about a bomb and drew a bomb. But the police never wanted to track down who it was. When you say, Allen, like, look, dude, this is pretty incriminating on you. Who was your friend? You know, like, hey, we'll even give him you know, we're not going to prosecute him. We just want to know who he is, just to see if you're telling the truth. Who's his friend? You know, we won't prosecute him or whatever. We just want to know. We want to prove or have this guy even admit that it was his stuff just to make Allen less guilty or whatever. But they, you know, I'm sure they wanted it to be Allen's, but they never even tried to see. Yes. Yeah. A bus bomb. No, Allen didn't have sketches of the bomb. He just had the material. He did not. I don't think he had sketches per se. I don't think so. Zodiac never mentions pipe bombs, but ANFO bags dug in a hillside. Yes. But didn't he say, no, he never mentioned pipe bombs. You're right. But he said the bomb, after he got swamped out, he was going to go dig it up or something like that. Can't remember the bomb's location, but he got swamped out and he was going to go dig it up. Can we read Alan's complete letters to Phyllis from jail somewhere? He wrote, for example, of course, Zodiac hasn't reoffended, I don't think, since I've been in here. Yeah, that's interesting. But it is interesting that there was a lull in the letters while Alan was at Atascadero for the molestation. But all you had to do was know that he was in there if you wanted to make it look like he was the killer. Oh, that's what you're talking about. Yeah, then I got to watch that part again. Netflix documentary, they went over that they found supposedly sketches of a bomb, but remember there was also a speeding ticket. Thought you saw that on there. Yeah, they're talking about the speeding ticket in Berryessa. There wasn't. You seen any sketches like that from Leigh? Yeah, yeah, you're right. Have some highly interesting drawings done by his brother, though. Yes, Paul, and that's true. Going back, at least we agree, Paul, that there is drafting going on here in the correspondence. And Arthur Lee Allen's father did do some drafting for the city of Vallejo. By the way, that comes from Graysmith, but I don't know why you'd make that up. But of course, Ron could draft, Don Cheney could draft, and Sandy could draft. And I remember someone else had pointed out that they also see lettering pen experience in the correspondence, like neat lettering pen. People that have trained to draft and trained to write small annotations with what they call lettering pens with different nibs, different sizes, so they can illustrate different things. Arthur Lee Allen did, to my knowledge, didn't know how to draft unless his brother taught him or his father. And I don't think he had any celestial navigation experience, although he did know a lot about piloting. So he was a little more well-rounded than people know. Yes, that's true. The lull in the letters would make sense, but all you had to do was know them if you wanted to keep them in play. And when he was in jail, the first letter that shows up when he gets out, think of this, is the I am back with you. This is the Zodiac speaking, I am back with you letter from 78 where the DNA sample comes from. And it says that city pig Tosky is good or whatever. So there's a belief that Tosky wrote that letter, even though he never admitted to it. He got caught writing letters in another case. But the school of thought is still out on that. That's an authentic Zodiac letter. So not only was Arthur Lee Allen ruled out on DNA from a non-confirmed Zodiac letter, that letter may, there was no lull if that's not an authentic letter, because what made it look like it started again was the 78 letter, and that is not confirmed Zodiac. It isn't. I don't know if it was Morrill or not, said that he thought that was his Zodiac letter. Then two other handwriting experts in the case came out and said they did not think that was authentic Zodiac letter. So that is something to bring up, because there really was no lull if that letter was fake. Yeah, I think most people agree Falk saw Zodiac. I don't think he could have any blood on him at all. All the blood would come out of an exit wound on impact. Maybe because the gun was so far up to his head. Plus, he was in the back seats, which have shielded him. That's a good point. Seawaters have ALA breaking down and confessing to me the Zodiac on a phone call. Yeah, that was the Dave Seawater in the Netflix. Easy to do, and he's not around to defend himself. True, he's not around to defend himself. There was no recording of that. Of course, Alan was proclaiming his innocence all the way. In the end, he wanted to take another lie detector. They could. I think I asked Druser about that once. I don't know why. I don't know. I think he thought something was so obvious that they must have, but we don't know if they did test Tosky's DNA against the 78 letter. Why wouldn't they? I know he's got a daughter, right? Could they still do that? That makes sense. Why wouldn't you test the DNA on the 78 letter? I mean, that would be good for Allen fans, because, or anybody that got excluded, like Kovali got tested against the 78 letter. That'd be good news for Rodelli. They should. I don't know if they, but you know, they have this sample. So, yeah, to rule that it's Toski, I'm saying would be good. Yeah, test a family member. Isn't it his daughter that posts sometimes, Ross? Some lady named Toski posts somewhere on one of the forums. And I don't know if that was her just coming up with the name or if that's actually Dave Toski's daughter. Because she'd probably be in her, I don't know, maybe her 60s. Watch slow motion gunshot wounds, micro spatter from the entrance wound, sprays back and forth a lot. Alan Fitz weird. Yeah, Alan's as weird as they come. Circumstantial, but no hard evidence. No DNA, handwriting inconclusive. No, the handwriting's not inconclusive. I think they concluded he wasn't, other than this whole right with his right hand stuff. Blood evidence, just Cheney accusing him. Yes, it really is. But a lot of people point this out. It wasn't only Cheney. I mean, even if you discount Spinelli, you've got Phil Tucker. You got Phil Tucker and his wife saying they saw Alan handling papers that had Zodiac cipher symbols on them, and Phil Tucker's wife wanted to borrow them. I mean, the Tuckers told this to the police. Most dangerous game. Alan admits to liking the most dangerous game in high school, and that shows up in the 408. I mean, there's too much going on in Arthur Lee Allen's orbit to not have anything to do with these crimes. It really does. Strip away the Seawaters, strip away the painting party and the Graysmith lies, like the Allens got together and concluded that Arthur was a Zodiac. He said that once. It's not true. That never happened. Karen disputed that. But strip all that away, and you got still so much flying around Arthur Lee Allen that he's like gum on your shoe. Oh, it's his cousin. Okay. Holly. Okay, yeah, Holly. You're right. Holly Toski. Yeah, that's true. Unless they could confirm they got it from the back of a stamp. True, Paul. Have drawings done by Leigh they haven't realized. Yeah, but they searched this place twice and no. Yeah, I never heard of that either. And I never heard of finding any drawings from Arthur Lee Allen at all. And I know in the documentary that it makes it look like they recreated his room. Is that AI? I don't know. If somebody knows, tell me. Is it looks like they recreated his room from, the scenes of his room from the interview with Rita. That it looks like his exact everything. Like maybe they used that and cleaned it up, or they, because they definitely photo touched all the photos they used in the documentary and did a great job of it. But it's almost like the AI recreated Alan's room. He is. That's a fact. The Vallejo PD is convinced that he did Blue Rock. And then you hear Bauer says again that they were going to make a move on ALA before he died. They were going to try to get him convicted, but the DA was Mike Nail at the time, and he said no. It was going to cost a lot of money to try Alan. And remember this: Alan was in terrible health already when they were going to do this, when they were still talking about it, because Bauer really wanted to try him and get a conviction and apprehend him, but Arthur Lee Allen was in terrible health. They knew he wasn't going to live much longer. He was going to dialysis, like they mentioned 3 times a week. Like the Seawaters mentioned that their mother told him he wasn't going to live much longer. They knew he was going to die, and it was some political thing going on there, and it was going to cost a ton of money to do it because they didn't have anything concrete on Allen. So it was going to be bringing in experts and all this sideshow for maybe not get a conviction. It would have all been circumstantial. He would have been a creepy guy, but it was too much of a gamble. So I think Mike Nail said this, and Michael Butterfield reports on it a lot, that no, they were not close to indicting Allen for these crimes, despite what Bauer says. That's true. If he was, he wouldn't tell us. I don't know. I'd like to see that. I mean, I'm just saying the ones that I've seen. I don't think the patches are fake. I think the patch that shows that symbol I'm talking about, the one with the VF, not the Zodiac cross circle, but the VF symbol. If somebody shows me one of those bike patches, it's original, that has that symbol on it, I'm a believer. But I think somebody on the internet got creative with it and drop that symbol in to make it more Zodiac like. I just, from what I've seen. But if there's an original patch from Satan's Slaves, would have been it. Yes, we agreed there. There's drafting going on. I've heard multiple people that draft say that. They've said lettering pen and drafting. Lots of people with drafting experience have looked at this stuff and said, this guy it can draft. Is it? I've never seen it on a Hell's Angels jacket. I've never seen it. I would think somebody would have found that over the years, because it's always been speculated where exactly that symbol comes from. Not the cross circle, but the other one. I'll look at some. I've looked at old Satan's Slaves patches and have not seen it other than one that I think somebody photoshopped. That'd be good if she has more letters just to read the context of them. Not just the wording he uses. He uses the word. Alan uses the word hell a lot. He likes to use the word hell. So did Zodiac. They like to use the word hell. Speaking of Hell's Angels, they couldn't. They don't have enough DNA to do a genealogical search. They only had enough DNA to exclude people with the 78 example. And the DNA in the Zodiac case is a cluster. None of it makes sense. It's all bad. It's done by the worst DNA lab that it ever existed. Was the SFPD DNA lab. It's a joke. It's a joke. Many people went to prison for murder that were innocent because of their crappy DNA lab. San Francisco Chronicle ran an article during the time they were trying to resurrect the Zodiac and DNA letters in 2000 when they did the Primetime Live special, and they ranked dead last in solving murder for major American cities. Their DNA lab was an absolute mess. There was corruption in the DNA lab, and this is just not me trying to poo-poo on the DNA, but it was a joke, literally a joke. You had the PCR test, which is something that needs to be done in a controlled lab to get DNA from under a stamp, which is what they used to try to get it from under the 78 letter, and they didn't do it right, and it's just none of it is quality enough to even use. But they never had a sample that was big enough to do any ancestral DNA tracing on it, like putting it into CODIS or whatever and finding a match. They can't, because it was 4 out of 9 markers, I think. And from what Druser told me, that it's impossible to say that the 78 letter matched DNA from a 74 letter, meaning probably The Exorcist, because it's only a partial, and you cannot conclusively match a partial to another partial. But I want to find that out for sure. I want to have David Middleman on soon. Nothing new on Yuba art. I was talking about my buddy Keith yesterday about it, though, and how we want to get back on it. And Keith mentioned that he wants to get back up to the area where the trailers were and see if there was still a foundation there where the trailers could have been, and maybe metal detector around there would be cool. With celestial navigation, drafting, mask expertise, sewing, Don could sew real well. Comic appreciation. Don admitted he read the comics in the newspapers. Don Cheney said that's the first thing he read in the papers was the comic book section. History with main players in the case. Of course, Tim Holt, by fire, by gun, by rope, visited Bakersfield High School to the Boy Scouts when Don was there. Cheney is the only one that checks all the boxes he does. He's got it in spades. He's celestial navigation. He's a big game hunter. And it's interesting that Cheney decided to lie about that. Said that, I hunted when I was a kid in Bakersfield, but that's what we did when we were young, and I didn't do it since. Wrong. I can prove Don Cheney was an avid big game hunter all through the 1980s. He was still hunting long trips, shooting big game in the 80s. No doubt. And he decided that he wasn't going to tell the truth about that. Of course, he didn't want to come forward and say he went to little junior college with Paul Avery. Hey, since I'm involved in this, I remember that Avery fellow from Bakersfield. He didn't bother to tell anyone that. Oh, that reminds me of something. Yeah, they did. Sacramento News Station did do something like a month ago. It might be on their website. I don't remember. Hold on. because Keith sent that to me yesterday, and I told him I'd already seen it because Tony had sent it. It's called To the Point with Alex Bell. If you Google To the Point with Alex Bell, you should be able to bring that up. That was the Sacramento update. To the Point with Alex Bell. I think that's what you're talking about. Ralph Spinelli probably knew that Leigh was a suspect. He did. I mean, somebody tipped it to him, and it probably wasn't that guarded of a secret when Spinelli heard it. I mean, people knew by then. People knew. By the late 80s, it was probably no secret. It was they were looking at Allen. Those cops are it's going to get around. A town like Vallejo, it's going to spread. Oh, yeah, he absolutely wanted a shorter jail sentence. He made that clear. He made that very clear. Let me go back. I wanted to read this guy's comment. I think I screenshotted it. But he was talking about coincidences, which I thought was interesting. That made me think of it. Okay. And I think he left this on the video from Friday, but I'll just call him QEW because I don't know what the name this is. But he said, if you study probabilities, you know that, for example, an incredible coincidence actually had a small percentage of chance of occurring. Now, if you add other coincidence to that coincidence, the probability of both occurring at the same time is much lower than that of just one of them occurring. In the case of ALA, there are dozens of coincidences, so the probability of finding a suspect like him is really a very small number. The coincidences that add up are that there are several people say it was him, the victim who accompanied Darlene Ferrin, her fishing friend, and the new witnesses of the Netflix documentary. She said who died during the recording. I think he's talking about Dave Seawater, who did die when they were filming that. Rest in peace, Dave. He used weapons, the fact, the knife, the chicken blood in the lake, locations and time, space coinciding with the crimes, etc. What happens here, unlike other cases, that is impossible to know what the probability of each coincidence is because they are coincidences of everyday life. There is no method to calculate it. I don't know. I thought that was a pretty good. There's more that went on, but that's true because you have the one crazy coincidences and then it kind of builds on itself. And he's right. That's what happens here. There's a lot of stuff around Allen. It's hard to separate from it because the expectation is, and I've learned this now writing a PhD peer-reviewed paper on this stuff, that Don Cheney's going to come forward and accuse Arthur Lee Allen of this for whatever reason. If he's jerking the cops around, if he's mad at Allen over this molestation attempt, whatever it is, the expectation is not going to be that the circumstantial evidence and what they're hearing from people is so good that Allen remains the prime suspect. That is not the expectation if Cheney's making it up. It's not the expectation if Cheney's wanting revenge. You're going to go look at Allen. You might find one or two pieces here that sound like Zodiac, but you're not going to get so much heavy stuff that he's going to last for over half a century and still be at the top of the mountain. That's not expected. It's also not expected to look at Cheney and find that he went to school with Paul Avery at 52, that he's a big game hunter, that he was in the Air Force, and if he was a wing walker, that's an Air Force shoe. It's Navy too, but an Air Force guy like Cheney would have accidentally known what a wing walker was. He was an engineer. They wear shoes like that. Cheney's got a relative named Paradise. Cheney's got a cousin with the last name Paradise, Paradice spelling. That's the coincidence that breaks my brain, is that Cheney has a cousin with the last name Paradise. Is insane. And then his mother's maiden name is Fryer, and then Zodiac liked to go looking for his victims on Fry night, and he never deviated from Fry. I'm a big believer that Fry night comes from Cheney's mother, Fryer. I just do. There's so many. It's insane. Not to mention the widow's peak. Yeah, Cheney had a widow's peak all day long. Cheney was truly barrel-chested. Falk. It does, but I think Allen was insulated from some of it. I think Allen maybe participated in the letter writing campaign to a degree, mailing the letters like Pleasanton and maybe a falling out. But yeah, I think they're a duo to some level. I don't think Allen probably. Alan just doesn't strike me as someone that had the killer instinct, as one of the detectives says in this. He just doesn't seem like he's got a killer instinct. I think he's a blowhard. Like the kids that he molested, just don't tell your mom. He's a strong serial killer, and he's going to just say, don't tell your mom. I just don't see it. I don't think Alan's a killer. I think Cheney's a wolf. Next to no blood comes out. Any micro droplets were to come out of the shooter, it would have been, it wouldn't be visible on closed view by Falcon, a moving car, and at nighttime. And I don't know how good the lighting was, but good point. Really good point. Let me check, go back to these. I read that one. Of course, we have Ned. There's the ace again, Brian. You know, I wish Brian would listen to that documentary and listen to Cheney's voice and just wonder, because to me, Cheney sounds like he's got that little bit of a. I would think maybe he'd been from Texas when you listen to a younger Cheney, and I'm thinking he's in his early 40s there. And Grace Smith recorded him when he was writing the book, and that's Cheney probably in 42, 43 years old, and he kind of has a country sound, you know, that Bakersfield thing going, that I'm sure he had it much more when in the late 60s, but would love it if Brian would listen to that. So Brian, if you're watching this, please go watch the documentary and turn the volume up real loud when they play the Cheney thing. Yes, he does. He's got a hint of a draw in it. He does. I can't remember some of the words, and I play it again, but he definitely has a hint of a draw in that he's younger. And it's a Bakersfield thing. It's a Okie Dust Bowl transplant Bakersfield, where they have that they call it a Bakersfield draw. Yeah, man, I'm just gonna keep going. There's hitting records in the live. Yes, definitely check out Ross's channel, Planet X Filmworks, for great non-con Zodiac films. Ray Davis, I think that was your first, right? Was it Ray Davis? And then you did, you did Gaviota and Riverside, but the Davis was great. Of course, that lady there that you even interviewed was the first one that thought that's how Ray Davis got on the radar, was that reporter from Oceanside. She thought that the Ray Davis murder sounded like Paul Stein's murder. So that wasn't one like that happened back in the day with no, Swindles was your first. Okay. And that Swindles murders was in San Diego, of course, where you are. And then you did Oceanside. I mean, Ray Davis, really. I mean, that one's really hard to look at. And killing a cab driver. And then the phone call. There was a phone call after the Ray Davis. Yeah, Christy Hawthorne was the reporter that said, the Zodiac people need to look at this murder down here in Oceanside because this sounds like Zodiac. And if it was, that'd be the first ever, probably, maybe his first kill. What was the Swindles? I forgot. The Swindles wasn't before Ray, was it? Yeah, Cheney's hard to shake, Rob. He's hard to shake. And, even Druser, who's not a Cheney guy, but sent me some really interesting handwriting comparisons from Cheney, in addition to some other people. Druser sent Swindles was 64, thanks. So the first would have been Davis that we know of. Yes, Ross does a great job. Those are great videos. I mean, his Riverside did like, I don't know what, 45,000. Really well shot. They're all great. And I had Ross on here not long ago when we talked about Edwards and Dominguez. And are those videos still on YouTube, Ross? That the police guy that wasn't a police officer from there, but he later became a cop, was friends with Linda and Bobby in high school, and he made a bunch of videos about their murder. Yeah. Falcon and his partners, Eric Zelms, had shown their flashlights on the Presidio suspect or moved to search him, that he'd open fire on them. You know what? That's a good point. Somebody told me once that was ex SFPD that Falk was scared to death. Like what you're saying, Stuart. Somebody told me that they knew that Falk was just scared out of his mind. Yes, the 5-point series is still up. Oh, it's on that one? Really? I thought he had his own channel. But maybe so, but it's on the goat screen. I think it's more likely Cheney used ALA. Yeah, I think he used them as a patsy. Some people think that. Some people think that Allen was completely in the dark. Well, he's still around, Paul. Maybe you can get through. Maybe if I said what I said on Friday was, if I could talk to anybody, it would be Karen. I'd love to talk to Karen. I think she's going to have the best. I don't know if it's because I don't know if she's female or just more. Maybe she's more with it or not. But I don't know. If I had to choose, I would want to talk to Karen. I would want to talk to Karen Allen and what she remembers about. I don't know anything, but obviously in your case, she might not want to talk. But I don't think she wants to talk anyway. I don't think she wants to talk to me or anyone. By the way, I don't. I think I don't think she's ever going to talk to anybody. I really don't. I think that's a dead end. I think Karen is a dead end. Unfortunately. Yeah, that's true. What happened to Zelms, even though he wasn't supposed to be with Falk that night? Good point. The site videos? I don't know. There's some good site videos on other channels. I think I did a couple when I went to the sites. I did one at Blue Rock. I mean, they weren't real in depth, but I shot some video at Lake Herman Road, and I shot some video at Blue Rock. Shot a little bit at Tuolumne and Springs. I didn't go to Berryessa. I should have, because I was up there, but I know finding the exact site there has been washed out. You can't find the exact site where Brian and Cecilia were at Berryessa, and I knew that, so I knew I couldn't. Knowing I couldn't go to the exact site, I just didn't want to make the pilgrimage up to Napa when I was in Vallejo. I don't think Darlene's sisters have ever said anything about Gajkowski, to my knowledge. But I've never heard much from the sister that's in this documentary. It's usually Pam Huckabee, or is it Linda or Lisa, the other sister? And I don't remember the name of the one that's in this, but you don't hear from her much. Yeah, I think so. Well, Bauert was suspicious of Cheney. Bauert certainly was, particularly when Cheney got hammered drunk the day before a scheduled polygraph that was going to take place in Tacoma, Washington. Cheney got so hammered that they had to reschedule the polygraph, and they retook it, and it was inconclusive. You wouldn't say Cheney failed or passed, but it was inconclusive. And Cheney talks about it in the article with you, interview with you know who, and Cheney saying they wanted me to make a slip of a tongue. Remember that phrase from Zodiac lore? Of course, that comes in the concerned citizen card, where it says, where he mailed in the solution to the 408 right after the Hardens had solved it. By the way, they received the 408 key from concerned citizen. And he says, I do not wish to give my name because it could be said by the slip of a tongue. Well, there's a Zodiac phrase that Cheney uses, that Zodiac used, because I think Zodiac did write the citizen card as the author of the 408, of course, even though the solution and the key given by concerned citizen slightly deviated from Hardens, slightly deviated. Of course, it was the same solve, but there was a couple little differences in it. But I think maybe he was embarrassed that it was solved so quickly. I don't know, but Zodiac wrote the citizen card. But Cheney's talking in that thing about when he finally retook the polygraph, that they were trying to make him make what he called a slip of the tongue. And I don't really know what he meant by that. I wish he got pinned down a little more what he was trying to say there, but that polygraph was inconclusive, so he did not pass. Yeah, Myth of the Zodiac. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you could say he failed, but he didn't pass. I mean, they said inconclusive. And then, of course, he dodged the first one by getting drunk, knowing he was going to take it. So he's hiding something. He's hiding something. We know that. There's no doubt. Cheney's hiding something. And that isn't folklore either, like the infamous Berryessa speeding ticket. It's documented that Cheney, Bauer talks about it. Bauer was the last detective to work on the case full time from Vallejo. And he mentions this, and his name was Arthur Lee Allen. And that's when he started getting really suspicious of Cheney and the licking the stamps. But you got to remember, Bauer really was convinced that it was Allen. He was just dead convinced. And he had this problem with, if he wants to look at Cheney too hard, he can isolate Cheney, and then he's not going to have Cheney's story to try to convict Allen, because Bauer was really convinced. He says it in the video. He says, yes, I do believe Don Cheney's story, but I sometimes wonder if he doesn't know more than he leads on. I think I'm saying that verbatim. So if Bauer goes after Cheney too hard, he's going to lose Cheney. If he got Allen into court, they would say, well, here's your buddy. And he said, you told him on this day that you were going to become Zodiac, that you took him over to Blue Rock Springs. Also he said Lake Herman Road, but that had already happened. But he said, you took him to Blue Rock Springs. If that's true, you have to be the Zodiac killer. But that was the fine line Bauer was walking. If he goes hard after Cheney and says, hey, I think you're part of this, then he could go quiet on him, and then he's going to lose it. He'll totally lose his shot at getting Allen. Of course, he never got that shot, but that's what he wanted to do. That's why Bauer was bummed when he gets a phone call from the police officer and he's playing a game with him or whatever. He says, hey, you still trying to get a conviction on Allen for Blue Rock Springs or whatever? He said, yeah. He goes, well, I'm here with him right now, but he can't talk because he's dead on the floor or something like that, kind of being a joker. But yes, Allen had died. He was on the floor of 32 Fresno. So all hopes were just dashed for Bauer on getting something on Allen, because you can't stand trial when you're dead. That's interesting. So Trump, I think he said that Trump said he would release all the JFK assassination files. I would think there would be some that are still alive. I think they definitely know more. Who knows what are in those files? But yeah, that'd be interesting. But I'm a big believer in two shots. I'm not a magic bullet guy. I'm a two-shot guy, because that's what Governor Conley told his son, who's one of my uncle's best friends. 2 shots. Father to the son, to his close friend, my uncle, 2 shots. I don't know if they took it. I know they took brain fluid to test Allen's DNA, but I don't know if they took his brain out or anything. I don't know if that's true. I'd love to know. I've never heard they actually took his brain out, but they did his DNA was they tested was his brain fluid. Well, is that the most trustworthy? I don't know. That's really weird. It is really bizarre. I think Cheney had clear motivation to been Zodiac crimes on ALA because Cheney's daughter being molested by Allen. Well, yeah, I've talked about that a lot. The only source of that molestation is Cheney himself, and he did tell Ron Allen about that. The daughter, as an adult, didn't remember any of it and was never told it happened. That's kind of interesting, right? She would have only been 3 at the time. And Allen really wasn't going after 3 years olds, but he didn't follow through. This is butt touching incident. So if let's say that's true, why does Don Cheney stay friends with Arthur Lee Allen after this incident? Because even Cheney, by his own word, said that the incident happened in 1967, and Cheney's still friends with Allen on January 1st of 69. So I'm so mad about this that we're going to keep hanging out together. That makes a lot of sense. And then after Allen dies in 1992 of a heart attack, of course, his kidneys were failing, but it was a heart attack. Don's still really willing to keep telling the stories long after his buddy's in the grave for this revenge play. So you see, that doesn't hold water. It doesn't. Yeah, he was. So was Cheney, though. Remember that. Cheney was too. Yeah, I think Allen wanted to take the spotlight. Allen, any way you look at it, Arthur Lee Allen enjoyed the attention in the beginning, and then I think it got old, but he did. Good point. If if Cheney was Zodiac and he wanted to frame LA, he must have his daughter. Why would true? And he never told the police about it. He never, anonymously or not, never told the police about it. And there's rumors, and I think I don't know if they were ever proven that Arthur Lee Allen's mother used to pay off different people or families for incidents involving Arthur Lee Allen to go away and not report it and things like that. But Cheney certainly never reported to the police, didn't get a fight with them, and kept hanging around them so they could talk about writing books or whatever the hell they were talking about, for a minimum of 6 months up to a year and a half, because remember, Cheney has to move that timeline because it's not fitting him well enough. But he stayed friends with Allen after this incident in 67. You think if that made him so upset, we would at least say, dude, we're not friends anymore, and then can frame him later for being the Zodiac. But no, Don wants to keep spending a little quality time with ALA. The polygraph was in Tacoma because Cheney was living. No, he was living in Benton City, Washington. And I don't know how far that is from Tacoma, but of course, maybe they didn't have the setup or whatever in Benton City. Really small town, but Cheney was living in Benton City, Washington at the time. So they had set it up for Tacoma to be more convenient for Dawn. No, that's no, because Cheney doesn't come forward until 71. So no, the answer to that is no, Rob. That couldn't be, because he doesn't come forward about Allen until July of 71, which is also suspicious. You have to believe that Cheney never heard anything that would have jogged his memory about picking off the little darlings as they come bouncing off the bus until July 71. So nothing, the LA Times is, of course, covering Zodiac when this is happening and the letters, but Cheney doesn't come forward till July of 71, well after the Stein attack, well after that day. Cheney claims to come to support Allen after getting fired for child charges after he had an incident with Cheney's. Yeah, that's a good point, Brant. Yes, he said he came to console him for losing his job at Valley Springs. Good point. He's gonna console his friend who got fired for inappropriately touching kids at Valley Springs after he allegedly did the same thing to his own daughter. Great point, man. He didn't submit to an anonymous tip because then if a police convinced ALA was Zodiac, Cheney couldn't continue killing as the Zodiac would have already been caught. Good point. I've always said that, Coach. You didn't want Allen to go all the way down because the game would be over. The fun is over. Allen gets convicted, so you can't do it anymore. It's got to end there, guilty or not. If Allen goes down, it's over. There's no more fun. This is the same thing that happened with Dennis Rader, BTK. The newspaper printed something about his last killing or whatever, and it was reminiscent for him. So he sent in a bragging letter with a computer disk, which was his undoing because they found his name because they were able to uncover the deleted stuff off the floppy. And that's how Dennis Rader got caught. But he got caught for his own ego because he wanted to basically take a victory lap. Ha ha, you never caught me, Dennis Rader, BTK killer. Similar to Zodiac, where he named himself, but Bind, Torture, Kill, of course, he got caught because of his own pride and ego in having to take a victory lap. Yes, the Mikado reference was so forced. I don't believe it. I never did. And you remember I said it on this show a year or two ago when the Seawaters had their channel. I said, I don't believe the Mikado was ever uttered by Arthur Lee Allen as a teacher. I don't believe it. I still don't believe it. And that doesn't help my theory or anything. I just don't believe it. More people would have said it. The only person that ever claimed he did it remained anonymous because they thought Allen would come after him. But even after Allen died, they didn't want to come forward. I think it's called the Calaveras article. There's never been any, 6, 7 people as students would have remembered that. If he says Titwillow from the Mikado, of course kids are going to run with Tit, right? And go home and tell mommy or something. They're going to giggle. Oh, Mr. Allen said the word Tit. It just didn't. It's just, come on. It's too convenient. Damn it. The motive was his motive would have been the whole thing, a masterpiece, a grand plan. I think the whole accusation of the molestation was part of this. He knew going into this what he was going to do. It was pre-planned. Maybe not when he decided to come forward on Alan, but the whole thing was just a masterwork. It was just, I'm smarter than you. I'm going to create this thing. You're not going to catch me. I'm going to employ some of my skills here. I'm going to drop subtle hints as to who I am, but nothing you'll ever catch me on. It was just something that, somebody that's really smart, but an underachiever wants to do. I don't know the psychology of it, but we know someone did it. And let's say it's not Cheney, and Cheney just wants to, or Alan, and Cheney just going to accuse Alan for fun. That's just as strange as being the Zodiac to me, is accusing your friend of being a serial killer for revenge, or just playing with the cops to take credit or whatever they did outside of not being the actual murderer. That's even weirder than being the murderer to me, is to take credit for that. I mean, and to gin it all up. I don't know. I mean, this is deeper psychological stuff. I think at minimum he's a sociopath. We know that Cheney's a pathological liar. There's no doubt about it. Cheney told tall tales. He told Michael Butterfield some crazy stuff. We know Michael Butterfield, Zodiac killer researcher, always fair, always by the facts. His website is Zodiac Killer Facts. Butterfield's really good about, he made a great quote, by the way, in an article 2 or 3 days ago, Michael Butterfield, and it said, Alan really looks like a great suspect if you're hearing it from people that believe he was the Zodiac. I'm paraphrasing that a little, but I thought that was a great quote from Michael. Of course, he interviewed me twice. I like Michael Butterfield. He does good stuff. But anyway, yes, I think that was the whole thing of it. I've heard that before. Always wanted to keep the suspicion on ALA. That's why that was the whole point of it, to keep the suspicion there, to keep this ruse going. I mean, that was the motivation. But anyway, going back to Butterfield, lost my train of thought. He told Michael Butterfield, Cheney did on a phone call, that Arthur Lee Allen told him that he was going to fly an airplane into the Sears Tower. And I don't know if this was before or after 9/11. Of course, that's Manhattan. But he told Michael Butterfield with in all straight whatever, it was a phone call, not face to face, but seriously, not kidding, told Michael Butterfield that Arthur Lee Allen told him that he was going to fly an airplane into the Sears Tower in Chicago. That is true. Michael Butterfield said that in at least one documentary, and he told me that. Why would he lie about it? He's not a Cheney Allen guy or whatever. Cheney makes up crazy lies. Why would Allen even say something that insane? Cheney's from satanic Bakersfield. Yeah, a lot of weird stuff happens in Bakersfield. Of course, you think of the White Orchid Society from Bakersfield, and the Lords of Bakersfield. I love that title. The Lords of Bakersfield is a group of politicians and high up people in Bakersfield that were molesting kids, and they were covering for each other. You couldn't prosecute them because they had people in the judgeships in Bakersfield. They had people high up in the police department that were covering up some of these murders of trafficked children and stuff. And these were rumors going through Bakersfield for, I think, starting in the 50s, where it was originally called the White Orchid Society. And then later they changed the name, maybe for a magazine article, I don't remember, called the Lords of Bakersfield. You can Google Lords of Bakersfield, where a lot of this ties to maybe Satanism and satanic sacrifice with the children involved with the Lords and the White Orchid, that kind of stuff. That's where I think of when you think of all the satanic activity in Bakersfield. And actually, Paul Avery, I don't know if he was going to work for the Bakersfield Californian, because when he left the Chronicle, he goes to Sacramento and he's writing. He might have written it for Sacramento, but it was about things in Bakersfield like that. Paul Avery was actually writing about it, which is interesting, bringing him back to Bakersfield, where he was nominally from, in Ridgefield, when he attended Bakersfield Junior College with Don Cheney in 52. If ALA dies in 92, he would have said the comment about flying a plane in the Sears Tower before 9/11. I need to ask Michael when he told him that, because no, this wasn't. Yeah, that's true. Good point. Good point, Anthony. Going to the dates, which is just thinking clearly. Yes. Assuming Cheney just lied about it, but I think when Cheney would have told Bakersfield, it would have been, Michael Butterfield, Bakersfield Butterfield, would have been probably close to when Voight interviewed him in 2001. It would have been around that same time where Cheney was kind of doing some phone calls and some interviews like that before he does His Name is Arthur Lee Allen in 2006. But you're right. If that story was true, it would have been before 9/11 because Allen was the one saying he was going to fly the plane into the Sears Tower, which is crazy. Hey, bud. Yeah, Ross has looked into a lot of that too. The Satanic Church and Michael Aquino. And of course, there was that lunatic lady that told me that Don Cheney used to play the organ at the church with Anton LaVey, which I don't think it was right. And she said that she had a picture of Anton LaVey and Don Cheney taking turns playing the organ at the Church of Satan. I don't go for that one. That's not coming from me, folks. It's just what I hear doing what I do. Martin Preschool, the real deal. Or was that the preschool in the Satanic Panic? The Gunderson claims are really wild. Yes, they really are. He was the one that investigated that. I think they never came to any conclusion about the school though, within the Satanic Panic. It's called Willis Tower now? Yeah, I knew it wasn't Sears Tower anymore, but I didn't know what they had renamed it. But I didn't know that. Yeah. What's interesting about that photo, Cheney is wearing glasses. He stopped wearing glasses at the end of 69. I've got a few post-70 photos of Cheney, and he stopped wearing glasses. I've got 2 or 3 photos of him wearing glasses that are from mid-60s. But from what I know, he stopped wearing glasses in the 60s, which is kind of interesting because he did. I've got multiple photographs of Cheney wearing eyeglasses. The visual played Satan's organ. She did send me a picture, but I don't think it was Cheney. It was somebody else. But it was funny because she was so convinced of it. Cheney's playing the organ down there with Anton. The things you hear through the years. Long story there, Paul. Horan thinks no one did it. Basically, he thinks maybe James Phyllis Morrison Douglas Crabtree III, of course, Darlene Farron's first husband, which according to Horan, they were only not legally married, but maybe common law. And I didn't know that. Horan knows a lot of stuff. He really does. But he thinks each crime was like a one-off, like maybe the Hells Angels did Lake Herman Road with Faraday and Jensen, and then maybe Crabtree. He doesn't say for sure. Maybe Crabtree for Blue Rock, and then possibly Dennis Land for the attacker at Lake Berryessa, and then Presidio. What was his last one with Presidio for Paul Stein? I think he maybe thought it was Snook for that. But a lot of people said, how would a Snook ever get? If Snook wasn't, because if Snook wasn't the attacker of Paul Stein, how would he? If he was writing the letters, how would he have gotten a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt? But yeah, Horan is different people for every crime, and then Hal Snook basically being the letter writer and cipher writer. Sending in all the letters was Hal Snook, the Napa police detective that found the footprint at Berryessa. Was actually the letter writer, and then he was claiming these crimes for just I don't know, to bring attention to him, or he had some sour grapes over not getting all his World War II medals. It's kind of a deep thing, but I think that's basically it. I wouldn't screw it up. Yeah, it's got a lot of working parts. I'll put it that way, Brent. No, you're not alone, Jen. You're not alone. Only by description. Only by description. His handwriting's a good match. Physically, I think he's a great match for Berryessa because he was barrel-chested. Of course, engineer shoes. He was a mechanical engineer. Mainly Cheney, I think, is a great match because of skill sets. He can draft. He's a big game hunter. He can sew. Police did know that about Cheney, had it in the file. a detective told me that they knew he was an advanced sewer. I don't know if all men could kind of sew back in the late 60s. I didn't know any, but Cheney was an advanced sewer. He made leather sheaths for knives. That's a fact. He learned it from his grandfather, Friar, because Brian Hartnell described a really intricate sheath for the knife. He thought maybe it was wood, but what I think Brian Hartnell saw at Berryessa was a very nice leather sheath for that foot-long blade that was used on him in Cecilia. But really nobody can be at a crime scene other than maybe what's his face over at Blue Rock, which the cop. Yeah, it's kind of hard. Yeah, the Hell's Angels thing, and I don't know why the Hell's Angels going to want to kill little Boy Scout Faraday and Betty Lou. That just, I don't know why. I don't think that makes much sense. But you can see why there is a theory like that, because you can't conclusively tie any of the two crimes together. Yeah, the game was over when ALA's in jail. It is. That is true. There was a long hiatus there. Yeah, you said that before. Did they say that in the documentary that Alan made that wetsuit? That is interesting. I mean, the one that's torn, where you can see part of his derriere when he's up against that car. I think that car was called a Kaiser. He probably claimed he first went to the Pomona police, which there's no record of, and then he came forward in 71 behind Panzarella leading the way. I don't know. I don't think he gave any information the information he gave that wasn't public was that he believed it was Alan, and that he said it was Alan, which was the information at the time. But I don't think he said anything like where anything physical could be found, like a weapon. So no, he didn't really say anything that maybe only the killer would know. But it was new in the context that Alan hadn't been brought up since he was interviewed after Berryessa by John Lynch. That's a good point. You're making some good points. ALA never said he was the Zodiac. He always said he said he was Zodiac according to Spinelli. Yes, that speaks volumes. These are great comments. I want to keep the live chat. Somehow I want to convert this over to a file I can save from the live chat, because these are some great comments. That does speak volumes. Spinelli's lying. Come on, he's lying. I mean, if he's not such a bad guy, other than being an armed robber, and he did make good at the end of his life, don't get me wrong. But if you knew that, especially after Alan comes back after Stein's murdered, you think he would have at least had an associate or a payphone phone call. Hey, go look at this guy, Alan, man. I think he's the guy that murdered the cab driver, and did it then, and not wait to use the information to get off of 2 armed robberies. Yes, exactly. If ALA goes down all the way, the game's over. It's over. You can't do anything more at that point. If Alan goes down, and it wouldn't have taken much, all he would have to do is leave a weapon there or something to bring Alan all the way down. A piece of Stein's shirt, Stein's wallet, he goes. And I do agree with when Panzarella says that in the documentary, that they should have searched the trailer in the house at the same time. Who knows what they would have found, because why did they search the trailer first and then wait so long to eventually search his house? It just makes no sense. He basically says that there are different people doing the killings, and it's one person doing all the letter writing, which is Hal Snook. And Hal Snook's handwriting is not a terrible match. It's not. That's part of Horn's theory, is because Snook's writing isn't a bad match for Zodiac's. Sea Waters helped ALA make a neoprene hood for his wetsuit, and it was implied it was the same one he used at Berryessa. Interesting. I think I missed that part, Stuart. I think I got distracted when I was first watching that. Need to go back to it. Now I know what you're talking about. Seawater said that they helped. Of course, I don't believe it. Of course, Seawaters weren't even around Alan later, but they're trying to say that he made that wetsuit in the early 60s and used that knowledge to build the so they're thinking neoprene for that. I mean, it looked like it was cut around a paper sack. Of course, we don't know what it was made of because they never found it. He would say he is Zodiac without the word the, and Spinelli thought that was odd. Why wouldn't he say the word the? Yeah, he just says Zodiac. You're right. He doesn't say the Zodiac. He just says Zodiac. Yeah, Spinelli stuff just doesn't wash with me. It really doesn't. Now the Seawaters are sewing wetsuits. Man, what are they not doing? Were the Seawaters there when Hoffa disappeared? Seriously. What else are they going to come up with? Man, the Seawaters are like Don Cheney. Their memories get better with time. It's amazing. Yes, we do, Brent. They know what my email is. It is an interesting idea. I agree, Josh. The neoprene is an interesting idea. No. To my knowledge, no. No other suspects' properties were ever searched except for one. They searched Don Cheney's house in Benton City, Washington for evidence. I don't know if they actually got a search warrant or he allowed it. They didn't find anything because this is so many years after. I mean, but they did search Don Cheney's house in Benton City. I don't think they turned it upside down, but they did search it. So the only searches I know of were Cheney's house in Benton City, Allen's 32 Fresno, and Allen's trailer in Santa Rosa. Those are the only searches ever carried out regarding the Zodiac. Seawaters cover 70% of all mysteries. Yeah, next time they're going to be riding the Loch Ness Monster next week. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces to that theory. I agree. Man, 10 o'clock. I mean, we've been going a long time, but these are some great comments. People are really thinking. Really good. So I think that is it. Please remember to hit the like button. Thanks for running the chat, Patty. Let me put this up. Everybody have a good week. Definitely going to do a Bigfoot growl because it's another week. Thanks for everyone that tuned in. Had a record. I think 107 is a record. I think no, it was like 112. Man, thanks for everybody that tuned in. Really happy.